Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
A freilichen and a lichtige Chanukah.
Amen.
I want to thank our sponsors for this series for Amunah for the year. Dr. Zavi and Bella Morgan, Lezecher Nishmas, in memory of Rabbi Dr. Brian Galbit, Baruch Tzvi ben Ruvain Nassan. We thank them for their sponsorships. A reminder that a week from today is the Siyam Hashas that will be celebrated at MetLife Stadium in New York and around the world, but also with a location here in Florida. It's going to be an enormous celebration of Torah for people throughout South Florida. Thousands signed up. And a special Siyam Hashas in memory of Brian. Special Shas has been learned in the last few months alone, just in his memory, and will be a great tribute to him. And it's not too late to get tickets. And in fact, the tickets are $5 admission, next to nothing. But tomorrow they go up. So take advantage of ordering today. SouthFloridaSiyam.org is where you can get them. We also want to thank the sponsor for today in particular, our friend Lynn Hahn. Thank you, Lynn, for your sponsorship. We appreciate it. Okay, we are in Be'emunah So Yechya, Ravoba's fantastic sefer, Tzadik Be'emunah So Yechya, the righteous live through Emunah. If you walk through life with Emunah, you're alive. And if you're walking through life with no Emunah, if you think that you are the beginning and end of it all, if you're pursuing your own honor, your own ego, your own needs, your own pleasure, your own happiness, you think that you are the one in control, it's your own pride, it's your own sense of arrogance that you are the one responsible for all in your life, then you're dead even while you were alive. Then you're sleepwalking through life. Tzaddik, to be a righteous person means be'emunah so yechya, to find life through the emunah that we are living. This is what Chanukah is all about. I'm not digressing to Chanukah yet. We're going to get into our finish up what we've been learning, and then we'll get into Chanukah if we have time. But I just want to say that that's what Chanukah is all about. The notion, the contrast of Chanukah, of darkness and light, are not a physical reality, a physical contrast. They are a metaphysical contrast. The image of darkness is a person who's living in a self-centered world. A person who's focused on themselves. The person who thinks that they are the beginning and the end. The person whose ego is inflated and arrogantly walks through life thinking they're in charge, they're in control, they're responsible, they get the credit, is a person who's living in darkness. The saddest thing about the people who are cloaked in darkness is too many of them don't even know it. The egotistical, self-centered, narcissistic person thinks they have all kinds of relationships, but they're shallow, they're superficial, they're counterfeit, and they're fake, and they think that they're living a full, robust life. They don't even know what they're missing out on. Only when you turn the light on do you realize. You ever walk in a room and someone was sitting there and they thought that it was light, you turn the light on for them. Some people's childhood was like that, when their parents saved money by turning all the lights off in every room, even when someone was sitting in it. So if you come into that room and you turn the light on for them, they say, wow, I didn't even realize how dark it was. Until you turned the light on, I didn't realize how much I was missing. I didn't realize how much I was struggling or straining to see. Until you turned the light on, I thought it was light. And once you turn the light on, only now do I realize how dark it actually was, how much darkness I was sitting in. And the same is true for us emotionally and spiritually. We could be walking around in darkness and not even know. And you turn the light on for someone, and you show them there's a bigger world, and there's a higher being, and there's more to life, and there's meaning, and there's purpose, and there's selflessness, and there's giving, and there's fulfillment and satisfaction, and there's happiness, is to turn that light on. And that's what we're doing. 8 nights in a row, we're turning the light, the dimmer, a little higher, and a little higher, and a little higher, until the 8th night, it's burning bright. And that glow is enormous. We're fanning that flame that starts out as a small spark inside each of us. On that first night, all there is, thank you, Baruch, for the coffee each week, we appreciate it so much. On that first night, all I light is that little flame. And I think that that's all there is that little flame, that little spark inside me. In Shabbos Shuvah, I told the story, but looking around, many of you were not here on Shabbos Shuvah. No, not, many of you don't live locally. It's not a criticism of you. So I'll tell the story again very, very briefly, just to give you the context for Chanukah. But that last year, or 2 years ago on Pesach, at the end of the Seder, at 1:30 in the morning, we walked the guests out, and a woman came running frantically back into our backyard, screaming and yelling and waving her arms, and not an idea what had happened. But she grabbed me, literally grabbed me, and dragged me to the shul. And when we got to the entrance of the shul, I saw that there was an enormous fire. An enormous fire. And since we want to really expand our campus and do major work, my first thought was, turn around and go home. You didn't see nothing. But then realized there's Sifrei Torah inside and so on and so forth. Anyway, we came up closer, and by the time we got up closer, there was a dumpster that had this enormous fire that was going up. It could be 20, 30 feet into the air. An enormous fire. And shortly after, the fire department had come because someone else saw it as well and called the fire department, who came and who put it out. And we tried to struggle to figure out, where did that fire come from? How did that happen? The fire department helped us understand. What had happened is, that morning, it was the first Seder, it was the first night of Pesach. And that morning, we had biur chametz. We have these big metal drums where people come and drop off all their chametz to burn. And our incredible, amazing, devoted, dedicated custodians had made sure to put out the drums of fire before they emptied its contents into the dumpster. And what did they do? They poured an enormous amount of water on it. And they waited till the whole drum had cooled. And then they poured more water on it. And then they checked it. And it was all cold, and it was all cool, and it was all out. And it was entirely extinguished. And when they were confident it was, they turned the whole thing over and emptied it into the dumpster. And the fire department said, you know what must have happened? Buried underneath, somehow self-contained and able to still survive, there was an ember. There was a little glow. There was a spark. All that survived of the effort to extinguish the fire was a little ember. But many, many, many hours later, the ember, able to breathe with the oxygen in the dumpster, turned into a fire and became a raging fire that literally came very close to a tree overhanging the dumpster, which also was overhanging the building. And really, we got away from a disaster with tremendous hakaras hatov and gratitude to Hashem. But what's the lesson I took from that story? Was that I'd have to still raise a lot of money to try to build this building, number one. But number two was that all you need to have survive within us, all that needs to remain, all that has to be there. If life circumstance has extinguished the fire in us, so we had bad teachers or rebbeim or role models, or people mistreated us, or Judaism or Orthodox Jews have turned us off, or hardship and trials and tribulations have made us feel disconnected and turned the fire lower and lower and lower and turned it out, all that has to remain, as long as there's an ember glowing inside you somewhere, as long as you can identify that pintel yid, that spark somewhere inside you, you fan that flame and it grows brighter and brighter, and it can yet turn into a raging fire, a raging bright light and a raging fire. And that's the imagery of Hanukkah. We started that first night with one little light, one little pach shemen survived, all the little flask. We start out with a tiny little spark, a little ember, one little glow. And by the 8th night, we follow the opinion of Beis Hillel, that we are Mosif Aholech. We're Mosif Aholech. We add and it grows, and we do more and we do more. We're Mosif Aholech. Each night, it's Mosif Aholech. How are we Mosif Aholech? By giving ourselves. All right, we'll start out with Hanukkah for a minute, and then we'll come back to Emunah. How are we Mosif Aholech? Inspiration, going from an ember, the first night of Hanukkah, to the 8th night, doesn't happen on its own. Every night you got to set up the candles, and you got to add an extra flame, and you've got to light the next flame. The second flame doesn't light from the first, and the third flame doesn't light from the second. We have a shamash, and we are that shamash, and we are lighting those flames within us, and we're lighting the flames in the people around us. The amazing thing about fire is you can light the flame of people around you, and it doesn't diminish your flame whatsoever. No matter how many candles that shamash lights, it doesn't get any smaller. Fire has that incredible, almost unique ability to light countless flames without being diminished itself. Other resources and other commodities, if I share what I have with you, I have less. If I give you my money, if I give you my food, if I give you my time, if I give you my energy, if I share what I have less. But the image of fire is that no matter how many times I've shared it, no matter how many fires I've lit with it, it remains burning bright. It's not diminished in any which way. We are that shamash. That's our mission, is to not become diminished in any which way, is to maintain that fire within us, to find that ember, that glow, and to let it burn bright, and to make it burn bright. The pasuk says, Aaron lit the menorah. We're lighting the Chanukiah, the menorah, to commemorate the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash. Aaron lit the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash as the first Kohen Gadol, and the pasuk tells us, after the parsha of the Karbanos of the Nesiim, which is what we're reading every morning of Hanukkah, pasuk says, Vayaskein Aaron. Aaron did this. Vayaskein Aaron. And Rashi quotes Chazal. Rashi quotes the rabbis who tell us, Malamed shvacho shel Aaron sheloshina. This is the praise of Aaron, that he never changed. He never changed. That's the praise of Aaron, that he never changed. God told you to do it this way, and he did it the way God told him. Wow, we should honor him at the dinner. And God tells you how to do it, and you didn't do it differently. You're not some tzaddik. I mean, God told you how to do it. And you do it the prescribed way, the way you were told to do it. That's your job. That's your job, is to do it the way that you were told to do it. Why are we lauding Aaron? Why are we putting all this praise on Aaron that he did it in that way? So, many commentaries explain that really you have to read it differently. Shiloshina means that not that he changed the way he was told to do it. It's not that the process didn't change. It's not that he didn't change what he was supposed to do. It's that he didn't change. The same excitement, the same joy, the same fervor, the same energy, the same enthusiasm that he brought the first day and the first time he was asked to do it, by the 1,000th time he was just as excited. It never got old, it never got stale. That's what the Rav Hirsch writes, that when it came to the Lachem Apanim, the 12 loaves that were in the Beis HaMikdash, and they changed it out every Shabbos, it says, Siluko kisidura, when they took the bread away, it was as fresh as when they put it there. And the typical understanding of the Gemara means that it was a miracle of the bread in the Mishkan. There were no preservatives, there were no additives, there were nothing to make it last, and yet, a week later, when they took the bread out, it was just as fresh as when they put it there. But Rav Hirsch says, don't read the Gemara that way. It doesn't mean the bread was just as fresh. It means the Kohanim, the same ones who did the same procedure and the same process and the same activity, they didn't become stale. They never lost their enthusiasm, their energy, and their excitement. And that's our mission, to walk in the way, to be a disciple of Aaron HaKohen. To be just as excited, to light our Shabbos candles, our Hanukkah candles, to do each mitzvah, to volunteer with each moment of chesed. To be just as excited with the passion, the fervor, and the enthusiasm. To be devoted, to give our entire selves, to be part and parcel of this process. There's an amazing thing about the Hanukkah candles. We all know that we celebrate the miracle of the Pach Shemen, the little flask of oil that was meant to last one day and lasted instead for 8. But one of the great questions the Pnei Yehoshua asks is, Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. They could have lit other flasks. All the other flasks had been contaminated, they had been compromised by our enemies. The only one that remained pure and eligible to be lit was this tiny little flask. But we have a halachic principle of Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. We have certain halachic principles, variables, technical not for now, but the circumstances were such that you could rely on certain leniencies and you could have lit any of the other oils. They didn't only have to light that oil, only that oil. So the Kedushas Levi, or Levi Yitzchak of Berditchever, the Berditchever says, nevertheless, they devoted themselves, they dedicated themselves only to light the one that was the highest caliber. They were so devoted that they made a statement that they would be unsatisfied lighting anything less than the best. Anything less than the best. And this is the message of Hanukkah, is to not be satisfied with a little tumah. Yeah, the rules technically, and it's okay, and I can rely on it, it's exception, and it's exemption, and I can get away with. Is that the way we live our lives? Is that the way we live our lives? When people ask me, they're putting up a new home, I get the privilege of getting the first tour of the new homes, because they have all kinds of mezuzah shilas. So I take a tour of the new houses that go up. So they say, Rabbi, I called the sofer, and there's a mezuzah for $40, there's a mezuzah for $140, and there's mezuzahs in between. Do I really have to, is there really a difference? It's ink on parchment, it says the same thing. Is there really a difference between the $40 mezuzah and the $140 mezuzah and the $300 mezuzah? Do I have to really get... So I say, let's go out to your driveway. So what are you talking about? What does my driveway have to do mezuzah? Nobody thinks you have to put a mezuzah on a driveway. I said, let's see what kind of car you drive. If you're driving the most basic car with rolling windows and none of the features and none of the... then you can get the most basic mezuzah. But if you're not satisfied with the basic features, if you're not satisfied with the least options, if you're not satisfied with the most basic model, then you can't be satisfied with that in your spirituality either. I'll tell you the same thing about a car. Does it not get you from point A to point B? I would use the name of a basic car, but I don't want to insult anybody. I drive a Honda Accord. I have like my 5th Honda Accord in a row. It's the most balabatisha car you could have. A Honda Accord. It's a Pasha car, a Honda Accord. Honda Accord. In fact, I'm up for a new lease, and the person I get the lease from said, you know, the Accord for some reason is expensive. The Acura is less. I said, I'm not driving an Acura though. I don't care if it's less money. I'm not driving an Acura. A Honda Accord. So if you drive a Honda Accord, does it not get you from point A to point B? Just like a Lexus, a Mercedes, a BMW, or a Tesla? And yet, you want the Tesla, you want the BMW, you want the Lexus, you want the Infiniti, you want the Acura. So if you have that kind of car, that's the kind of mezuzah you have to get to. And in our physical lives, we are overachievers. I want a bigger house, I want more money, a bigger portfolio, a nicer car, nicer clothing. I want more and more and more. In our physical material lives, in the education of our children secularly, we are overachievers. Take the SATs again, you can do better. Take it a 17th time, take it 22 times. You can get the honors, because that also means I get more of my money that I get to keep if you get the honors. So more and more and more and more in the physical material world, and in the spiritual world, it's good enough. Isn't there some opinion that says that's kosher somewhere? Doesn't it say somewhere, isn't there an exception, an exemption? I'm on vacation, I can go and I can rely on. Can I rely on? Isn't there an opinion I can rely on? I Googled it. And I found somewhere someone once said something, and if it was good during the Holocaust, can I also? So when it comes to the world of spirituality, we're satisfied being underachievers. And Hanukkah says no. Be an overachiever. They could have used Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. They could have used the Pach Shemen that was Tameh. They could have used a contaminated oil. But they said no. To light our holy menorah? To illuminate the world with the holy menorah? We're not going to bring anything that's less than the ideal. We're overachievers. We're doing the best. In our home, for our family, we're going to bring anything less the ideal. We shouldn't feed them garbage physically. We shouldn't feed ourselves garbage spiritually. And we have to live with the highest and the loftiest. And that's how we have to devote ourselves. Shaloshina, like Aaron HaKohen, to never lose the enthusiasm, the passion, and the dedication and the devotion, and to be present in all that we're doing. And that's the bracha. We say a bracha when we light the candles. Sha'asanisim la'avaseinu. And the Yavitz, in his Morag Tzia writes, Yaakov Emden writes, that this bracha is not like every other bracha of a mitzvah. If I left out the bracha before I shook the lulav, was I yotzei in the mitzvah of lulav? Yes. It happens to be the rabbis ordained the birchas ha-mitzvah. We have three kinds of bracha. We studied this at length when we talked about the 100 brachas. So we have three kinds of bracha. Birchas ha-nanin, the bracha before I enjoy or benefit from this world. A birchas ha-shevach, a bracha where I praise Hashem, lightning, thunder, and so on. You see natural phenomena. And then you have a birchas, what did I say? Birchas ha-nanin, a birchas ha-shevach, chodah, and a birchas ha-mitzvah. Before I light the candles, before I put on my tefillin, before I shake lulav, before I blow shofar, before I hear Megillah, I make a bracha before doing a mitzvah. When it comes to every other bracha before a mitzvah, if I omit the bracha, I still fulfill the mitzvah. And yet, Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes that when the bracha that you say before lighting the candles, if you lit the candles, the Chanukah candles, but you did not make the bracha, Sha'asa Nisim La'avaseinu, you've not yotzei the mitzvah. Why not? I've achieved the net result. If you look in my window, you'll see that there are candles lit. Okay, the bracha is corollary. The bracha is tangential. So I forgot the bracha. I missed out on the bracha, but didn't I get the mitzvah just like every other mitzvah? If I shook lulav or heard the shofar or heard the Megillah or lit the Shabbos candles or put on my tefillin and I forgot the bracha, did I get the mitzvah? Absolutely. I forfeited the bracha, sadly, but I got the mitzvah. So why is Hanukkah candles different? So he says because it's only through the bracha. It means that when I'm present, when I'm devoted, when I'm thoughtful, when I'm mindful, when I'm conscious, when I'm giving myself pirsumei nisa, when I'm seeing in the light of that candle my neshama, when I'm seeing my capacity to grow and to aspire and to elevate, that's when I was yotzei the mitzvah. The other mitzvahs, even if I do them very superficially, even if I do them just physically and I wasn't mindful and present, I didn't have the kavanah when I did it, I could still put a check. You know, the most amazing thing in a relationship is that if you take out the garbage with kavanah, that it's drawing you closer to your spouse who asked you to, it's beautiful. But if you didn't have the kavanah while you were taking out the garbage, that even though this is a disgusting act, which will leave my hands smelly, and I was already undressed, and I got to drag it to the edge of the driveway, and the car was really in the way, and it would be such a pain, I had to go around it, and I had to go through the mud. And even though, but you know what? Each of those compromises and sacrifices is bringing me closer to my spouse, who asked me if I take the garbage out. What a kavanah. It's geschmack. What a brach. I'm taking the garbage out, and I'm the garbage through this, taking the garbage out, harayat mikudeshesli. Wow, this is an unbelievably romantic gesture. So that would be the holiest and highest way to take the garbage out. But let's say you didn't have any of those thoughts. The only thought you had was, I got to get this over with as quickly as possible. Still, if the garbage is on the curb, your spouse is happy. You got it done. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the same way. He wants us to be present when we hear the Megillah, blow the shofar, put on tefillin, light the Shabbos candles, and so on and so forth. He wants us to have mindfulness and be present and have the entire experience and be transformed by it. But in the end of the day, as long as we can put a check that we did it, we've been yotzei the mitzvah. But Chanukah is different. Because the whole institution of Chanukah, the whole holiday of Chanukah, is that we don't get away with the bare minimum. The whole idea of Chanukah is that I'm not satisfied underachieving. It's not enough to just get away with it. It would have been enough to use a contaminated jug of oil, but they refused to. They went the extra mile because they never lost the enthusiasm and the passion, the dynamism, the energy, and the devotion. So therefore, you have to. Listen what he writes, Shem yadliku below bracha, ein bo pirsum anes, shiusfurim shedliku neris letzorcho. If all you see is a candelabra lit in your home, so people just think, what? It was dark and they needed light. Now today we have electric lights. We would never have candles burning in our window. But in antiquity, in the time of the Gemara, and until fairly recently, the person lit a candle in their home every night because that's how you were able to see. So how did someone know whether the lit candle reflected the fact that you needed light or whether the lit candle was because you wanted to publicize a miracle? How did anyone know? What transformed the lit candle from a conduit of light to a conduit of personal growth was your presence and mindfulness to make that bracha. So Chanukah is the holiday of not getting away with it, of not underachieving, of not doing the bare minimum, of not looking for the out. Chanukah is the holiday of getting it right. and giving all of ourselves and being fully present and reaching and striving. We mentioned yesterday in the Parsha class as well that it's the image of the candle. It's the image of a candle. You look at a candle, and what do you see when you're looking at the flame of the candle? No matter what direction you hold the candle in, it's an amazing thing physics-wise. No matter what direction you hold the candle in, the flame goes up. So you say to the flame, I don't feel like going up, flame. I'm having a down day. I'm down and out. I'm depressed. I feel like I'm in a dark place. It's the language and the vernacular that we use. Somebody who's down and out, who's hopeless and helpless, somebody who's depressed, somebody who's turned inward, says, I'm in a dark place. I'm in a very dark place in my life right now. So you say, candle, we're facing down. We're in a dark place. And the flame looks back at you and it says, tough noogies, I'm facing up. I only know one way to face. I only face one direction, and that's up. And that's the Pintel Yid, the spark, the flame inside us says, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how you're feeling, no matter how people around you are behaving, no matter what life is throwing your way, that little flame, it could be the ember, in the dumpster, or it could be a full-fledged flame, but it turns back to you and it says, I only face one direction. I only face one direction. Kiner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle is the symbol of our soul, of our neshama. We're made up of two parts. We're made up of an animal, and we're made up of our godly spirit. We're made up of the physical, the gashmi, and we're made up of the spiritual, the ruchni. We come from the aretz, the ground, the earth, and we're going to go back there. But we also, our soul descends from above, from Shamayim. Our entire lives are trying to merge Shamayim va'aretz, heaven and earth. Our entire lives, that's the ladder of Yaakov Avinu. We're trying to create the bridge between heaven and earth. On the one hand, the earthliness in us, the aretz, the afar that we've been learning about from Reb Chaim Vital, is dragging us down. On the one hand, it's trying to drag us down. And it says, just eat it and drink it and look at it and go there and do that. It's all about your physical pleasure. It's all about indulging in your happiness. It's all about pampering with vanity your body. The body's dragging us down, 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 down. And the soul inside us says, come on. You're so much better than that. And you're so much more than that. Strive higher. Come on. It's not just about the latest clothing or your appearance or your look. It's not about your money or your things or your happiness. It's about meaning and it's about purpose and it's about your neshama and it's about connecting to a higher power and a higher being and meeting his expectations and following his prescription for your happiness. Come on. You're capable of so much more. Stop resisting it. Stop allowing the aretz in us, the nefesh bahami, the animal in us, stop allowing it to create a resistance that's holding us back and break through and make that change and nourish that soul inside you because it's desperately trying to go from an ember that's holding on. It wants to be fanned. It wants to be able to explode into a raging fire. And now we look at the menorah, we have a Masorah. The Kedushas Levi says, or Levi Yitzchak tells us that Chanukah is the holiday of seeing. Different holidays have different tastes. We have 5 senses, and the different holidays correspond with different senses that we have. Pesach is our sense of eating, matzah and maror. Pesach is the holiday of eating. Each of the holidays correspond with a different sense. Purim is the holiday of listening, of hearing. I have to hear the Megillah. Chanukah, he says, is the holiday of seeing. It's the capacity to see. And what am I looking for? What am I seeing? He says, the Kedushas Levi, after you light the Chanukah candles, we have a tragedy that happens. And we struggle with it. Everybody struggles with it. You light the menorah, and immediately you run to the other room. Open presents, make latkes, spin the dreidel. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, running out to the next concert, the next event, the next program, the next gathering, the next... And those poor little Hanukkah candles, they say, you weren't supposed to just light me and leave me. You weren't supposed to just light me and abandon me. Spend some time with me, sit with me, look at me. Now, we're not allowed to benefit from them. Haneris alalu kodashim. Ein lanu reshus lahishtamesh behem ela lirosam belvad. In yeshiva, that's what they used to say, the boys would say about the girls. Ein lanu reshus lahishtamesh behem ela lirosam belvad. You're only allowed to look at the Hanukkah candles. You're not allowed to benefit from them or interact with them. Just lirosam belvad. So the whole Hanukkah candles, they're haneros halalu. These neros halalu, we're lighting the menorah, and haneros halalu, kodashim. They're kodesh, they're holy. So we take our little kids to shul. When they're little kids, when shul is over, we walk them on the bima, we open the aron and say, look, it's a Torah, give it a kiss. Give it a kiss. It's holy. It's a holy Torah. The tefillin, it's holy. But the Hanukkah candles, haneros halalu, they're kodashim, they're holy. And what do? Come on, kids. Presents in the other room, latkes in the other room, dreidel in the other room. That's the best case scenario because at least we're still spending time with each other. Worst case scenario is everyone scatters and goes on to their own lives, and Hanukkah lasts for 7 seconds that it takes to light the menorah. But Aneres Halalu Kodeshem. Lir Ela Lir Osam Bavad. You're not allowed to use the light of the menorah. You can't learn or count your money, the Gemara gives an example, or do your own personal things next to the light of the menorah. You can't benefit from the light of the menorah. But yet, what are we supposed to do? Lir Osam Bilvad. The one thing to do with them is not to use them as a torch to light up the room. What do we do with them? They're there for one reason and one reason only, to stare at. It's not polite to stare. When it comes to the Hanukkah candles, it's not polite not to stare. It's impolite not to stare. Ela lir osam bilvad. Our whole mission, and the Kedushas Levi says, this is the holiday of looking, of seeing, of staring. And it has the ability to repair the damage we've done to our eyes. We've done damage to our eyes in different ways. Some people have damaged their eyes by looking at the things other people have with jealousy and envy, and wishing they had it, and wondering why their neighbor has it. Some people have damaged their eyes by watching things that we shouldn't be watching, images that we shouldn't be absorbing in our eyes. We have all kinds of damage done to our eyes. And how do we repair that damage done to our eyes? We have a skula, a good kind, the legit kind, that when you finish lighting the menorah, the Hanukkah candles don't run anywhere. The latkes will be waiting, the dreidel can wait, the Hanukkah gel can wait, and the distribution of the presents can wait. Just gather around the candles and look, and stare, and watch that light. And what are you looking for? You know, the flame, it dances. It's dancing. Remember the Baal Shem we learned a few weeks ago? A person walks into a room, and there's music playing, and everyone's dancing, and it's a huge party, but they're deaf. They've got earplugs in. They've got noise-canceling headphones on, and they don't hear the music. What they see are a bunch of crazy people dancing in a room, but it's only because they don't hear the music. And the Baal Shem says, Emunah is the music of life. Hashem is playing the music of, hi, I'm here, and let's dance together. And there's a music and a rhythm and a meaning and a purpose to the world. But if you don't hear the music, you just see a bunch of crazy people dancing. But if you take the earplugs out and now you hear the music, all you want is to jump in the middle with them. You can't hold back from dancing with them. So that flame, it's dancing, it's flickering. And in what way is it dancing? It's not dancing down. It's not dancing down to the earth, and it's not dancing to a place of physicality. It's dancing only up. It's dancing higher and higher and higher. Kiner Hashem Nishmas Adam, our neshama is just dying to go higher and higher. And our body is the resistance that's blocking it and holding it back, and leaving us feeling unsatisfied and unfulfilled, and lacking the meaning and the purpose that we all crave. That's what we're looking at. They're Kodeshem. The Yevanim, I said this also in the Parsha class, I won't belabor it, but the Yevanim's mission was, Lahachshech Einayim Shal Yisrael. They tried to darken our eyes. The pasuk says, "Choshech al pnei tehom." The world was tov avov choshech al pnei tehom. When the God created the world, it's the description of the original creation, and the 4 phrases in that sentence all correspond with the 4 exiles. So the exile of choshech, of darkness, is the exile of the Syrian Greeks, of Hanukkah, of the Yevanim, of the Hellenists. They tried to darken our eyes. What does it mean to darken someone's eyes? They said, stop looking at the flame. Stop feeding and nourishing your neshama. Stop believing that there's an ember and a spark inside. Stop lighting fires. Lahach shechinayim. They tried to make it dark outside. How do you make it dark? By turning off the light. By extinguishing the fire. By extinguishing the flame. They tried to put out the ember. They tried to put out our fire. They tried to extinguish our fire. And our mission in life is not only to be on fire, but to light other people's fire. And to make our fire burn even brighter. And how do we do that? When we look at the light of the menorah. And when we look at that light of the menorah, you know what you see? If we gather around that fire of the menorah, Haneres Halali Kodeshem, and L'Rosim Bavad, if we'd stare at them, you know what we'd see? We'd see the bracha that's under our eyes all along. What does it mean to be living in darkness? Darkness is, woe is me. Darkness is, I have nothing, and the world is nothing, and all there is pain and suffering. And there is a lot of legitimate pain and suffering in this room and well beyond. People who've suffered and struggled and been stricken in ways we can't and shouldn't ever have to imagine. And Hashem should just give you strength and courage and comfort and consolation and bracha. But those who haven't experienced that horrific struggle and that horrific suffering. Yesterday I had back-to-back meetings. First, Yocheved and I met with an amazing couple. Come to my Parsha class. I told the story in a drasha last year, 2 years ago, about the hidden shul of Theresienstadt. So the daughter of the artist who drew that hidden shul comes to the Parsha class, and she and her husband came to meet, and they shared more of their story, and they are you allowed to say about a couple, they're the cutest couple you ever met and the sweetest couple? They're both deep into their 90s. and they both were sent on the kinder transport and lost their whole families, and they met at an orphanage at a young age, and then they got married and they built a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful family. And there they were telling us their story of survival and how they lost their whole family. An extraordinary, extraordinary story, talking all about Hashem and how good Hashem is to them, and the 100 offspring that they have, being at their grandchild's bris, their great-great-grandchild's bris, and how amazing Hashem is. Amazing Hashem. So parents murdered, killed, family exterminated, suffered, sent on a kinder transport, living in an orphanage, and Hashem is just amazing. They're on fire. They're on fire. The light of the menorah on fire. And the next meeting, sadly, was with a young member of the community, dating a non-Jew, turned off, went through our entire Jewish education system. And you say, why? Well, because this and this happened to me, so there's no God. There's no Judaism. There's no purpose. And this isn't a reason to be observant, I said to them. I'm not trying to guilt you into it or tell you the reason. I just can't help but telling you that the people right before you in this office, in the same chair, were two people who lost everything, who went through the greatest atrocity in the history of humanity, who went through the greatest loss and the greatest pain that ever existed, and they sat here with a smile on their face talking about choosing to see what Hashem has done for them, choosing to see the good, choosing to turn on the light, rather than live in the dark. They're exceptional, they're extraordinary, and I'm not saying it's easy. And I don't say it to guilt that person or guilt any of us, but they are role models, they are a source of strength for us. And we live in a generation that, this one thing, whatever, it didn't work out for me, I'm out, I'm done. Life isn't perfect, everything doesn't happen exactly the way I want. I'm not talking about the people who've had terrible tragedies, who have every reason in the world to object and protest Hashem. But I'm talking about, I recently flew, and would you believe the Wi-Fi didn't work, and there's no God. There's no God. The Wi-Fi was slow, it was out. My DirecTV didn't work, or the channel I wanted wasn't working. There's no God. Woe is me, why do bad things happen to good people, and there's no God. Which I'm exaggerating, but not by much, this generation, which includes us. So you light the menorah, you light the Hanukkah candles, and you see the bracha that's right in front of us all along, that was right under our nose. George Orwell once wrote, to see what is in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle. To see what's right under our nose needs a constant struggle. And what I'm getting at, and then we'll get to our learning. What time is it? Hey. We're almost done. What I'm getting at is, whether we live in the light or the dark is up to us. It's up to us. You could turn off the light and sit in the dark and say, woe is me, or you could choose to turn on the light. And by turning on the light, the problems are still there when you turn the light on. But you also see some of the solutions. You see the challenges, but you also see a lot of the blessings. So the choice Hanukkah tells us, turn on the light. And all you could start on the first night is a little light, so you turned on one light. And by the 8th night, you're able to turn the dimmer higher and higher and fan that flame brighter and brighter. And Hanukkah says, find the ember, find the spark, it's inside you. And Haneirus Halalu, that spark is Kodashem. It stands for your neshama, and it's dancing to go higher and higher. And your body is the resistance that's making you drag you down, down, down. But the spark of the soul inside you is trying to make you go higher and higher and higher. Stop resisting it. Stop holding back. Take that leap. Stop resisting it. Hanukkah, make a pledge, make a promise, make a change. You don't have to wait an extra week when the rest of the world are going to make their resolutions. You can make the resolution now. Overcome that resistance and feed that soul, that neshama, and let it go higher and higher. What improvement are we going to make? If we don't daven every day, I'm going to daven every day. If I daven without kavanah, I'm going to try to be present and think about what I'm saying. If I never volunteer to do chesed, I'm going to be thoughtful and drop off meals or check in on people when they're all alone. If my dress and modesty need improvement, I'm going to work on that. If my gossip and language and speech need improvement, I'll work on that. What area of my life, ben adon l'chavera, ben adon l'makam, ben adon l'ma'atzmo, is the resistance holding me back? That I say it's just not me. I eat out in those places, or I speak in that way, or I use that language, or I only care about myself. That's just me. It's the way it is. It's the way it's been forever. It's the way it'll always be. No, it doesn't have to. There's a soul. There's a spark. It's dancing up and up and up, and it may be a little ember or glow. Fan that flame. Give it the oxygen it needs. What's the oxygen it needs? It's Torah. The oxygen it needs is Torah and Emunah, which is exactly the point. Emunah is the oxygen that the ember needs in order for it to glow and grow bright and to burn as a raging, raging, raging fire. That's what it's all about. Hanukkah is the holiday of sight and of seeing. Haneirus Halalu Kodashem. They're holy. And they're Osam Bavad. We're supposed to look into them and see ourselves and see the lives that we're capable of and the Emunah that we could have and how it would transform our life to wake up every morning with a sense of mission and a sense of purpose, with a sense of why we're here and the difference that we can make and to see the bracha in our lives. Should we do one paragraph back in the Sefer? Okay, one paragraph. HaTorah misaperish shebizman HaKadosh Baruch Hu bo levakir es Avram Avinu la'achar milasa yeh lev malachim. Torah tells us that in the time that Hashem visited Avram after he had his bris, so angels came. Avram came by him mitzvah nachas zorchim. We all know the story. We just read it recently. Avram's sitting outside his tent. It's the third day after the bris. It's the most painful day in recovering from surgery. And Hashem's in the middle of visiting him and talking to him. And angels come. Now, if God is sending the angels, couldn't he have delayed their arrival a few more minutes till he was done visiting with Avram? Why did Hashem set up that conflict to begin with? Why create the conflict? Mistaber Lomer shekamanasa haisel lenasas Avram Avinu livchon im yaskel lahavin mitoch giloy ashchinas inyan hamidos haimizboni bedrachav shalabore mahu gomel chasadim af atate gomel chasadim v'yelech bedrachim elu. What we've been learning, Rav Oba has been telling us, is that the best way to improve ourselves is to live with Emunah. We think that if I'm better, I have Emunah, but it's the opposite. If I have Emunah and I recognize and realize and devote myself to Hashem, then I will improve myself. So what Hashem was testing Avram was, he was saying the following: I'm in the middle of talking to you, but my whole relationship with you is so that you'll be like me. So let's put it into practice. Let's test it. Let's see if it happens. You ready? We're in the middle of a conversation. Let's see if you interrupt to go host these angels that you think are men. Let's see if you interrupt. Because God says, in the conflict and choice between talking to me and being like me, I'd rather you be like me. Emunah is supposed to make us better people. It's supposed to help us correct and repair our midos. By believing and seeing the hand of Hashem guiding our lives, which is also obviously the story of Chanukah, Halal v'hoda'ah, al hanisim, vayamim ahem, bazman hazeh. They happened then and they're happening to us now. There are miracles every single day. Go back and listen to the Siddur snippets on Moda'ani and Birchas HaShachar and realize that when you woke up this morning and you opened your eyes and both your eyes worked, Bazman Hazeh, there was a miracle that happened to you today. You went to the bathroom, everything worked, there was a miracle that happened to you today. You put 2 feet on the ground and you didn't collapse and your legs took you where you meant to go, there was a miracle that happened to you today. There are miracles each and every day, and Chanukah for 8 days, Halal v'hodah, we are filled with gratitude to Hashem. Thank you. Thank you for those daily miracles. The overt, explicit miracles, and the hidden, implicit miracles. The purpose of the big miracles, the overt ones, is to open my eyes to the hidden ones. These are days of 8, Yemei Shmona. 8 is one more than 7, the supernatural. I see Hashem, I see you everywhere. In the natural is supernatural. In the ordinary is extraordinary. Hashem, I see you everywhere. And because of that, I'm going to improve my midos. I want to be like you. I'm going to emulate you. I'm going to follow your model, follow your lead. So that's what Hashem was testing Avram, and that's how Rav Oba is explaining this. Otherwise, very confusing section. Why didn't Hashem just delay their arrival till he was done meeting? Why did he set up the conflict? And the reason he set up the conflict was to test and to say, Avram, you claim that you love me. Avram, you claim you've discovered me and you found me. Then you must know that what I want more than anything is not for you to talk to me, but for you to be like me. Be like me. Improve your midos. Be kind and giving and gracious and magnanimous and benevolent and generous and altruistic. Be like me. That is the great tribute you can give to me. So I give us all a bracha. Yehi ratzon that on the remaining days of Chanukah, we should stare at those candles and watch them dance and flicker upwards. And they should inspire that spark inside us, the neshama inside us, the flame, the ember that's inside us. That we should fan it with emunah until it glows bright and becomes a raging, raging fire that is lighting up the whole world. Happy Chanukah.